Hello. Uh, we had some technical difficulties, and I would like to know if all of you can see the PowerPoint presentation so I can go ahead and introduce myself and welcome you to this Facebook Live, which is my first one. So please, I extend you my apologies. I didn't want to waste your time, but this is my first time, so please be patient with me. Okay, well, hello. I am happy to see you all here. My name is Jim Elizondo of Real Wealth Ranching. I help ranchers to maximize their profitability while improving their land the fastest. My focus is on low cost biological methods that bring harmony to your life, your land, and your livestock. I also consult worldwide in very different environments. Today, we are going to dive into the three most common mistakes we make when selecting bulls and how to avoid them. I choose this topic today because I know of many of my total grazing students that want to improve their land and profitability. Conventional cattle have not been selected for total ranch profitability, and this happened to me when I started ranching in 1990. It was a disaster of which I want to tell you about because I think it will help you to relate. I started with registered, conventionally selected pregnant heifers, 300 of them, that were not well adapted to my environment. Then I used bulls that were tall and lanky, selected for high numbers EPDs, which gave daughters that were hard keepers, and their fertility went down in my ranch because they were hard to keep in good body condition. I changed to new bulls that supposedly were hardier, but being tall and lanky themselves did not help my overall ranch profitability. Finally, I started using bulls selected correctly from better adapted genetics, and I changed my selection guidelines to where I started getting much better cows which excelled in real life fertility. As we know, real life fertility of a cow determines her profitability, and the number of animals, of productive animals we maintain at a low cost per ranch determines total ranch profitability. So this allowed me, along with the very high stocking rates afforded by doing total grazing, to be profitable and to improve my land. Remember, a total grazing is the high efficient harvest by grazing of what we produce or forage to have a better lift to stain ratio in the following region. Mistake number one. Uh, as you see that bull is a conventional bull based on high EPD numbers. He was the champion at the livestock show. But we need to ask ourselves, do we want pretty animals or do we want productive animals? To me now, this bull is awful. But a long time ago, I might have said, oh, that bull has very high numbers, so it will help my herd to be more productive. Well, selecting for high individual animal performance goes against total ranch productivity due to the management practices required to maintain them in good body condition. Why is this? Because they were selected to express their potential by unrestricted pampering, unrestricted high energy feeds used to have them express their potential. But I have a surprise for you. In a real ranch, situation, we do not require such high potentials because our forages and management cannot give them what they need to achieve it. So, because the fertility in our cows requires good body condition, by having tall and lanky high EPDs bulls, we will get cows that will not achieve good body condition by themselves, but require to be fed to maintain good body condition. So we want cows and bulls that have inherent body condition. That means that they inherited it from their dam and sire. Now let's look at this. On the bull on the left, that's a Brangus bull. It's the same bull that you see here, the champion of the livestock show. But 2 months after taking the energy feed and having him on a real ranch situation, breeding cows, that's how he looked. And you might say, yeah, but he must have bred many cows. He didn't bred one cow because there were other better adapted bulls in the same group breeding the cows that he couldn't because he was barely surviving. If we see that other bull there under the same paddock and group and conditions, he looks much better. But he didn't receive any extra pampering and he was selected correctly, or at least he had to correct genetics. Second mistake. The second mistake most of us commit is buying a bull without a visual evaluation. Tall and lanky bulls give tall and lanky hard-keeping daughters. When we buy only by numbers or pedigrees that don't tell us much, we are not evaluating the animal. We are just going with the flow or peer pressure, and that many times doesn't correlate to reality. Size matters. The taller the animal, the lower its body condition. At the very high stocking rates we need for profitability and to improve our soils the fastest. Hard-keeping animals require much more pampering to be productive. This goes against your quality of life and against total ranch profits. Why is this? Why does your quality of life goes down? Because you need to be constantly pampering them. Instead of your cows working for you, you have to work for your cows, and that's not enjoyable. That doesn't bring harmony to your ranch and life and livestock. The high-cost inputs required to keep tall and lanky cows productive also degrades our soil. These inputs that degrade our soils would be total parasite control, because the poison we use to control the parasites will kill our dung beetles, our earthworms, our soil life. And when we don't have enough dung beetles, forage production can go down up to 30%. When we insist on using chemicals to kill the parasites, external and internal, in our cattle, we weaken their immune system to where they become dependent on those chemicals. And we want parasite-resistant cattle, not chemical-resistant parasites. Another pampering or management or input high cost that tall and lanky cows require to be productive is a low stocking rate and selective grazing. By doing selective grazing, we cannot achieve the very high stocking rates required for profitability without incurring in overgrazing. Why is this? Because when they do not graze the whole plant, consume the whole plant and only eat 1/3 or 1/4 of the top, they have to return faster, and at very high stocking rates, that means returning before the plant has fully recovered. And that's the definition of overgrazing. When you regraze the same plant again before it has fully recovered its energy reserves. Uh, so a low stocking rate compared to doing total grazing has nothing to do. With total grazing, when you harvest everything and you allow a long enough rest period, your desirable species have the upper hand instead of the undesirable species. Your interplant spacings are reduced. Your solar panel is enhanced because you have a better leaf to stem ratio in the regrowth because the stems continue to respire and the leaf produce energy by photosynthesis. Respiration consumes energy. Photosynthesis can produce energy. We want fat cows, fat land, fat soils to give us fat wallets. So this is important to consider. The herbicide, then another high cost input that's required under selective grazing low stocking rates due to tall and lanky genetic with high EPDs is herbicides to control weeds or brush or pasture renovation when we destroy our best species by selective grazing. What brought about the problem of less humus in our soils, less desirable species coming in, brush and weeds, is precisely selective grazing. Even if we do it in a rotational way, it would only work at very low stocking rates compared to what can be achieved under total grazing. With total grazing, we can achieve 5 to 7 times higher stocking rate as the soil improves. With a higher leaf to stem ratio, the humus increases to where we have much better soil, much better holding capacity, and much higher fertility. But when we do selective grazing, we can only, even if we do rotational selective grazing, we can only increase to double what we had under continuous grazing, which is absolutely the worst. So this is another step beyond rotational selective grazing. Third mistake, buying a bull that comes from a much easier environment. You always hear that you need to bring a bull from a more difficult, that is managed with less inputs than where you are. But I want to tell you something. To improve your land and increase your stocking rate, total grazing is required. We need better or improved genetics that can achieve a much higher harvest efficiency while maintaining good body condition. How much higher? Up to 30%. In some environments, this is much easier to achieve, while in others, those same genetics will suffer. Try to get bulls that have been raised under very high stocking rates, doing total grazing from a similar environment, as this is required for whole ranch profitability. Make no mistake, low stocking rates with selective grazing is a much easier environment than a very high stocking rate under total grazing, even under the same ranch. To select correctly, we need to start with the correct selection guidelines. Here we see a good example of adapted genetics. These bulls were breeding the cows where that tall and lanky livestock show bull was. So these bulls bred the cows and the other one barely survived. Why is that? Because these bulls had much better adaptation. They were selected by nature, not by man. So we need to change our selection guidelines to where we do not contradict nature. And this will help. Now, I put together a free PDF for you titled The Practical Guide for Cattle Visual Evaluation. And it explains how to visually evaluate cattle for inherent body condition, high relative intake, better adaptation. That animal is showing you all of that. So by Doing this type of evaluation before you buy a bull, you will be many steps ahead of most people. If you ever wanted to do regenerative ranching to improve your land, this PDF will help you achieve it. Every time you select a bull, it is important you do not make the mistake of contradicting nature by following conventional guidelines, which select for very high EPDs numbers. Instead, select the very best animal that will give you better daughters to help you achieve higher whole range profitability and at the same time improve your land. This PDF will help you do that. Head over to the link that's provided and we're going to provide to download your free practical guide for cattle visual evaluation. Now, we will spend a few minutes to review your questions and answer them. Okay, I am ready for questions. I would like to answer them if you can see me. Hello. Well, I'm not sure if you can still hear me or not because um, I haven't seen any question. I see you are there, but you can ask questions at the left bar where it says live. Do you have pictures of correct variables? Well, yeah, I do, but I would like to keep this for beef cattle because, mm, well, I had them in another computer, but yes, there are some correct. Okay, I see another question by Crystal Harper. What is your thoughts on linear measurement? I think it is too clever, so much that it may confuse us and prevent us from reading nature correctly. When we evaluate a bull, we want to see its masculinity, its adaptation, its overstuffed body that indicates that he is the best. With this practical guide, you will be able to do it, and I can tell you something. In my experience, women are much better than men in identifying the best bulls. Now, another question from David Comlander. Where can I find bulls like you have showed? Well, there are many, but we really need to find them. Even in your own herd, I'm sure you have good cows. Most herds have good cows. This has something to do with sex, where the female, when a herd is selected incorrectly, the females somehow still maintain some of them good qualities, where the bulls or males go downhill very fast. So I'm sure that by using correct semen, which is widely available, you can produce your own much better bulls that can thrive under correct total grazing and very high stocking rates. All this is required to increase your profitability. There are some sources in the United States, I don't know in Canada, but in the United States, there are some breeders that have correct type genetics. You can source them there. um, selecting correctly changed my life in my ranch. I was having too many trouble or too many problems with my high EPDs numbers cows. Uh, Morbidity and mortality will go down when you do this correctly. You will have much more time because you don't have to be pampering them all the time. Yes, Brian Harper says creating your own rules is the best and fastest way. I agree totally. But sometimes we need to bring in some, what should I say, some genes from the outside to our herd. And once we incorporate those genes, we do not have to buy more unless we have very few cattle. And in that case, we can team up with other same minded neighbors or people in the same environment to create your own rules. Then you can share them. Liz Ginesta is asking, do you prefer some breed for Mexican tropic? Well, there are many different types of Mexican tropics. There is the lowland, the highland, the midland, the hot and muggy, or the cooler higher altitude, or the dry tropics. So I will say I really like the tropical the Mashona in a mixture, and I have pictures of beautiful animals of that cross to build a composite specifically tailored for the tropics of Mexico, for each different of those tropics. Now, Brian Harper is asking, will a Mashona contribute in our Canadian conditions? Yes, absolutely, because Mashona have a very high nutritional adaptation, which is important when raising seed tree or cool season grasses as you have there. But because of the cold, you cannot use much Mashona blood or percentage in your herd. Maybe one fourth as I would go, and then you will have very good results. Um, what else? Oh yeah, I have been doing a Tropicana with Machona. Well, not me, but people that I advise or have advised. Tropicana with Machona. Tropicana is a composite breed bred by my late uncle, where it has mostly Senegal, but has other breeds also. And when we include Machona as a half blood in that breed, in that composite, it really stands out, and we increase productivity per acre to the maximum. But the most important thing to remember about this live session that we're doing is to evaluate, visually evaluate your animals, and not only to go by EPD's numbers. EPD's numbers can be used, but not to the exclusion of visual evaluation. Because if we do that, we may end up with the worst nightmare. And it takes 7 to 8 years to totally change the genetics of your whole herd when you make a mistake like that. I would like to know if there are new questions because this has to do with total ranch or farm profitability. This is important. It's not only that I like to have different type of animals. It makes for really the difference between life and death for the animal and between profits and losses for us. Daniel Rodriguez Gasparis, what do you think for a semental milk? Oh, for a bull, a milk shorthorn to cross with Holstein cow. It's always a good idea to lower the frame size when they are excessive. Holstein cows, especially, tend to be very tall and lanky. They don't have much beef in that or much fat in that frame, and they tend to be 7 and upwards frame, so that's too tall. So by reducing the height and putting more pounds of meat, especially fat meat, per inch of height, hip height, we can improve them to where we can make more money. So yes, that's a good idea. If you find a good cement, a good milk chore horn, there are some good ones. I am working with chore horns, red milking chore horns here in Florida to create a composite with Mashona and Angus, the right type animals. Of course, that's important to always be careful and only select the very best animals according to that guideline. Review the guideline, observe your animals, and select accordingly. Thank you very much, and see you next week. We'll be at the same time, 6:30 next week on Wednesday, and hopefully we'll have all this resolved by then so we can give you a better service. Thank you very much and have a beautiful evening.